Hey folks, this is Vince with Dad's Gaming Addiction, and today we're going to check out Star Wars Empire vs. Rebellion. It's a card game for 2 players for ages 10 and up, with the average play time being about 60 minutes. But honestly, I don't think it'll take you 60 minutes to play this game once you get a handle on what it is you're doing. This is a game where one player is the Rebels and one player is the Empire. And basically what you're going to be doing in this game is playing resource cards in an attempt to win these event cards. These event cards list so many victory points. And if a player reaches so many victory points before the other player, then they win. Very simple. So with that said, let's go ahead and take a quick look at the components and see how the game is played. Okay, so here's a quick snapshot of the components. You've got your box here. You've got 5 strategy cards per player up here. In the upper right-hand corner, you've got some event cards. Again, this is what players are going to be trying to win in order to get victory points. Each player also gets a resource deck. There are 24 cards in each deck. Then you've got a balance token here. It's either Rebel or Imperial, depending on what side it's flipped to. And finally, you have some influence tokens here. Now here's a quick close-up of some of the cards. In this case, this is an event card. You can see the name along the top, Securing the Rebel Base on Yavin 4. It's worth noting that this game takes place over the course of the original trilogy, so episodes 4, 5, and 6. You can see the number of victory points that this card is worth in the upper right-hand corner. You can see the number of influence points that a player will get should they win this card. You can see the number of resource points that is required in order to win this card. And finally, this is how many cards can be played on this particular event. Now this is a resource card. You can see how many resource points that this particular card provides toward that event in the upper left hand corner. There is a special ability that some cards have, and when they are tapped or exhausted, they'll be flipped to the side, and they actually have, some cards actually have a lower resource contribution when they are considered tapped. So again, when the card is by itself and hasn't been played yet, or the special ability hasn't been utilized, this card will be worth 6 points. But when it is used, you'll see that it only provides 1 resource point toward the, say, 9 points required in order to win this card. So players will have to do a little bit of math to keep track of how many resource points that they've put toward a certain event. Finally, you've got these strategy cards. These are played at the beginning of every round face down, and basically they provide some sort of passive buff that is taken into effect at the end of the round. In this case, for example, you can choose your opponent's strategy card next round. So the strategy cards across both factions are exactly the same. They have the same effects. So there's no special abilities that the Rebels have versus the Empire. With regard to game setup, the event deck is simply shuffled and placed in the middle of the table. Each player will choose a faction and get the strategy cards and the resource deck of that type. Players will go ahead and look through their resource deck to pull out all of their character cards. They'll secretly choose 4 of them to place into their resource deck here. They'll just simply shuffle them in, and the rest will go off to the side as a quote-unquote reserve pile. Players will be able to draw from this reserve pile later on during the game. Each player also gets 2 of these influence tokens here, and the balance token is flipped. Basically, this helps to break ties. The game is played over a series of rounds, and each round has 3 phases: the planning phase, the struggle phase, and the dominance phase. During the planning phase, players will just simply draw the top event card, and they'll want to take a look at it to see what is required to win it. In this case, the Battle of Endor, you'll need up to 17 resource points. Only 5 resource cards can be played on this event. It's worth 3 victory points and 0 influence tokens. Next, players will want to take a look at their unused strategy cards. It's worth stressing unused because as the rounds go on, players will be discarding their used strategy card for that round off to the side. So whatever's left over is what you have to choose from. Once you run out of your 5 strategy cards, then you can take all 5 back and reuse all 5 again. Similar to Dracula, which is another card game for 2 players. But anyway, you'll take a look at your unused strategy cards, choose one, and place it face down, and that strategy card will be resolved at the end of this particular round. During the struggle phase, players will be taking turns taking 1 of 4 actions, starting with the player whose faction is shown on the balance token. Now there are 4 actions, like I said. There's play a card, use a power, spend influence, and pass. To play a card, you just simply draw one from the top of your resource pile and put it in the center of the table. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and just fast forward time a bit by taking a few turns. Okay, there we go. Now it's the Rebel's turn again. The second thing that a player can do on their turn is use a power. You'll take a look at the different card effects, and the card that you want to use, you just simply tap it to the side like this, similar to, say, Magic the Gathering. The third thing that you can do on your turn is spend influence. If you have any influence tokens, you can spend one to untap a card to ready its power again. Finally, you can pass. If both players pass in succession, then this phase ends. Now you're probably wondering, when should I stop playing cards or drawing them from the resource deck? Well, let's go ahead and cover the dominance phase so you can see what determines victory. The first thing that you'll do during the dominance phase, or the last phase of the round, is reveal your strategy cards. These will be resolved. And then after that, players will count up the numbers in the upper left-hand corner of the resource cards that have been played. And basically, the closest player to the resource total over here without going over will win that event card. Cleanup is pretty simple. You'll go ahead and discard your used strategy card for that round. Again, as players use these strategy cards, they have to be discarded, but if you use all 5, you get all 5 back to use once again. You'll go ahead and take all of your resource cards that you've used and shuffle them back into your deck to form a new resource pile. Of course, your reserve deck stays off to the side. If you happen to have drawn from your reserve during the round, that's fine. They stay in here too. Let's go ahead and clean up the Imperials real quick. We'll just put them there. The player who won the event card obviously will go ahead and take that event card. And if you happen to have won any influence tokens, you'd get them. In this case, in the Battle of Endor, you don't. And then you'll go ahead and move on to the next phase. Let's go ahead and flip this token so that the balance of the force is now the opposite factions type. Again, these help to break ties and determines the starting player during the second phase or the struggle phase. So with that being said, rounds will continue back and forth until a certain player reaches a total of 7 victory points. The first player to do that will win the game. And there you have it, a quick look at Star Wars Empire vs. Rebellion. It's important to note that I did not cover all of the rules found in the manual, but hopefully this will give you a nice general overview as far as how the game is played. It's also worth noting that I made a mistake during the recording of this video. I just realized it now that I went to sit down and finish it off. The Imperial Reserve deck was placed face up. It should have been placed face down. I'm not going to re-record all that footage for one little mistake, so hopefully you guys will get over that. But yeah, I just wanted to at least let you know that, yeah, that is a mistake and it should have been placed face down. Star Wars Empire vs. Rebellion, it's sort of like a lighter version of Star Wars the card game. I mean, you still have cards that have special abilities. However, there's no edge battles. There's no applying different characters to the Force, different things like that. There's a little bit of blackjack in here in that you're drawing resource cards trying to get to a certain total without going over, so there's that. It plays a little bit like War, too, if you've ever played the card game War. So yeah, I mean, for $12, I think it's worth it. It's a pretty fun card game, and the card art is certainly fantastic. It's not hand-drawn like in Star Wars the card game. These are actual movie stills. Some people will have a problem with that. Some people won't. I honestly don't care. They all look nice. So, with that being said, if you want to see my full review, you can check it out on my official website, www.dadsgamingaddiction.com. If you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel. That way you can keep up to date on any new content I happen to publish. This is Vince. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.